After learning about leveraging analytics with Marina Ashovsky, now we have Holly, and she will share her tips on how to save time and money while improving training metrics in her session. Drums here, Mission Possible. These insights can help you measure the effectiveness of your training and make necessary improvements. I'm personally very excited for Holly's session. I've already had a chance to chit chat with Holly and check that everything's all right in terms of our connection. So without further ado, Holly, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited to be here today to discuss this information with you. I feel like Tom Cruise should be coming down from the rafters, like doing a Mission Impossible sort of thing. As we speak, I'm pausing my notifications so that I can get full attention to the audience. So welcome everyone to the session, Mission Possible, not impossible. We're going to talk about saving time and money while improving your training metrics. And we're going to throw a little bit of instructional design information in there. But before I jump into all the fun, I want to know more about you. So if you have your mobile device or you're on your computer or you want to scan the QR code with the Slido, I want to know, what do you currently do? Are you an educator? Are you a designer? So I want to know what role you're currently working in. So that gives me an idea of who the audience is here, and I can tailor some of my speak to what your needs are. I'm definitely going to talk a lot about things at the top level, of course, so the more general information, but there are some things that I want to tailor to the audience. And of course, I have fantastic resources to share with you at the end of the presentation as well. So I see
Holly,
some.
would you mind me jumping for just a second before you rush too far on this Mission Possible? Would that be okay if we kindly ask you to share your screen to the full to to unleash all the potential of your screen?
There you go.
Fantastic. Great.
I didn't realize it had that full thing in there. Thank you so much. All right, so we have quite a bit of instructional designers, LMS admin. We have some higher education faculty and staff and some leadership in this room. I'm seeing some contractors, freelancers, teachers. Awesome. I love a good hodgepodge of a group so that you can take this information back with you and you can use it to make your job and training and things more enjoyable on your end. So let's go ahead and move on. So a quick about me. Don't want to spend too much time here. I have over 15 years experience in education. I started my career out as a high school teacher, but I then transitioned into higher ed, instructional design. And most recently, I am coming up on my 1 year with being an instructional designer at Amazon Pharmacy. Yes, Amazon has a pharmacy. People are always like, oh, Amazon has a pharmacy. Yes, we do. I'm also an adjunct faculty member with Toro University, where I teach graduate level students instructional design courses and designing, the foundations of things and designing online courses. So I do a lot of different things, but that's enough about me. And I encourage you to go out if you haven't already connected with me on LinkedIn, and I'll share that link at the end. I would love to be connected with you out in the socials world. So our agenda for today and going through this presentation, we're going to talk about metrics in the business. So we all, even if you're working in education and higher ed, K through 12, it's mostly run like a business. So we're going to talk about how these things are connected and what they are, give some examples. And then I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on the impact of instructional design in improving those metrics and saving you time and money in those areas. And then also, I want to dive a little bit into evaluation of your training programs and what you can do with that data. And then finally, I'll share great resources. Most of them come from iSpring, shockingly. And we'll have a little bit of a Q&A session so that you can ask me questions about what I just discussed. So I like to start off the presentation with some statistics for you. So I know that there may be people not, here in the United States, it's international, there's people everywhere, but I just want to give you an idea here domestically within the US. There are about 22,000 big businesses in the United States. That makes about up about 1% of our businesses, and then there's 31.7 million small businesses, which it makes up the other 99%. Putting all that together, and there are about 100,000 instructional designers in the United States. So that's a lot of instructional designers, and that number has definitely increased post-COVID. So just thinking about like all the different types of businesses, whether they're big or small or in between, and how they need, instructional designers to come in and help them, streamline training, save money, be frugal, all those different things. So these are just some of the statistics that I want you to think about as I am going through the presentation. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the metrics in the business. When you hear metrics, like when somebody comes to you, maybe on your team or your leadership comes to you and they say, we're going to talk about metrics today, what do you think of? And this is a word cloud question, and I'm using a tool, as I said, called Slido that you can incorporate into your presentations just to, poll the audience. So what do you metrics? Performance? Yep. Data, charts, and graphs? Absolutely. All the data, all the Excel spreadsheets, the pivot tables, all the fun things that data is big. So the more that people answer the same question or the same answer, the bigger it gets. So data, numbers, yeah, lots of quantitative information for you. Quantifiable metrics, torture. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can understand.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe we can also read a couple of answers from our chat, because for some reason, maybe people didn't have access to
Absolutely
the software. Yeah, I also have a lot of evaluation, assessment, quantifiable numbers, engagements, and yeah, all those sorts of answers.
Yes, all of those are correct. And all of those, this is not an incorrect or correct question, but these are the things that we think of when somebody approaches us about metrics. And one of the things that you did say, data. So I put on the screen, like you see different types of graphs, you see different types of scales of different things. This is a hypothetical situation. This data and information is not pulled from anywhere as part of a template. So you just see like maybe you're doing pie graphs, or you have bar graphs, or you have different charts, or you're comparing different types of matrix. And one thing we need to be reminded of, and Jay-Z said it in his song Reminder, is people lie, numbers don't. And you'll hear that quite a bit when people who are on the analytical side of things, when they come to you and they say, this is what happened in new hire orientation. We have about an 85% completion rate. We have a 70% attrition rate. Not good numbers. So the numbers are hard data. They're factual information. And that's why it's important for us, especially as instructional designers and being on these different teams for the business, to consider the data and information in what we do. So there are tons of examples, and I could probably poll you again about what types of metrics and data you use in your particular type of business. These are just a few that I've heard across my travels, and you probably hear, the KPIs, the key performance indicators that are measuring how much progress you're going towards the business goals. Time to proficiency. I work with a lot of different trainers and a lot of new hires. So hearing about like, how do we make our time to proficiency shorter? Somebody becoming comfortable and proficient in all the things they have to do in their role. The return on investment, what you put in, what you get out. Are you investing in your people? Are you sending them to conferences, professional development? What are you getting out of that? Are they taking different sorts of workshops? Revenue, profit, all those different things. Attrition. And I've heard quite a bit when it comes to the corporate side of things about the net promoter score. So how loyal customers are to a particular business is called an NPS score. And you hear larger companies definitely talk about that. These are just some examples of things you hear. And I'm happy to, if you have other examples, please type them in the chat. But these are just a few that are common across different areas. All right, so we got the metrics and the data out of the way. So we know things are connected there. I don't really need to say, I'm not a business person, so I'm not going to say how you should run your business or generate revenue or profit. What I'm really here to do is to give you some actionable goals and a list of things you can do when it comes from the scope of instructional design and how that impacts what you do in your business. So here's the actionable list, and I have 6 of these. So the first thing that you need to do, and we're going to approach this in a very like scientific method sort of way, is you need to identify the training needs. You need to know what people need. You probably need to survey them. You need to get information maybe from the trainers or the other stakeholders. Where do they need to develop their skills? Where are their knowledge gaps? So you definitely need to go in and do what we like to call like a needs analysis in instructional design and identify those needs so that you're training people on what actually needs to be trained on. And you're not just pulling it out of the clouds and, doing it like, I don't know, maybe they need this, maybe they need that. So, and you can also pull data from previous trainings if you have access to it. So kind of getting together and analyzing, identifying what are the training needs, what are the priorities, and then you need to use the systems approach. So often in instructional design, we follow the ADDIE method. That's common across instructional designs, both in corporate and education. And this really makes the training like effective and making sure, again, as you're identifying those training needs and then you're putting in the approach to ADDIE, you're analyzing, you're developing, you're designing, you're implementing and evaluating, that you're meeting the needs of all your learners or your participants. So we really want to make sure that we are using that systems type approach and it becomes a process. And in instructional design, that might look something like you do an intake, you start designing and developing with SMEs, and then you have an output of something that you have developed and designed, and then you get that feedback through evaluation, which we're going to talk about today as well. Also, too, it's important for you to choose the right modality for your participants. Now, is that something that's instructor-led? Is it VILT, virtually instructor-led? Is it in person? Is it a combination of those different things? Is it all e-learning? Is it some classroom? Is it hybrid? So really thinking about, once you determine those training needs, what are the priorities, and figuring out where you need to go, then you need to choose the modality that works best for you, because that's going to save a lot of time. If you do things, in maybe in the e-learning environment, you can share that out with a lot of different people, a lot of different participants. And that leads me to the fourth one, which is create reusable content. So we want to recycle things. We want to keep things very much at a top level if we can. So if it impacts different parts of the business, say, for example, customer care agents need to learn about how to, use empathy in their conversations with talking to our customers and helping them with their issues, then we need to make that across the business. We need to make that training not just specific to customer care agents. That can be applicable to different stakeholders or SMEs or pharmacists or whomever. And I'm using pharmacy as an example because I'm in this all the time. But think about it in terms of your business, and you can use it with different audiences and situations. So that 30,000 foot view, reuse that content, recycle it. Then finally, use technology. You notice that technology was not number one, and there's a reason for that. We don't use technology just for the sake of using technology. We want it to be beneficial for us and our businesses, and also for our customers, the participants that we're serving. Automate processes. If you can automate certain things, like you can maybe have participants get a badge, or that they're certified and such, automate that. Also, I would say, and some people may not agree with this, use ChatGPT. If you can go into the technology and maybe get an outline of what your training should be like, and that helps you with step one in the needs analysis, do that. iSpring, LMS, use that tool to your advantage to put your outputs into it and track your learners' progress. So technology is an important part of this and also helps with that modality piece. I also encourage you finally to pilot things. This is definitely going to save you some time and pain later if you pilot things with a small group first and you figure out like, oh, this isn't going to work. And then you didn't spend a whole bunch of money bringing people in from different locations if you're doing an in-person training. And then once you have the solutions put in place or the changes, then you can roll it out to the larger audience and it's more perfected in that iteration than it was. So pilots are very important piece of that systems approach as well, and making sure that things run smoothly and what you need to change for the next time. All right, so let's talk about some examples now when it comes to how you can, use these modalities or how you can, motivate participants. So I want to go over 3 examples. I want to talk about microlearning, gamification, and simulations. These are ways in which we as instructional designers definitely save time on the participants' end and also save time for us on the ID end when we're creating these things that can be used inside the learning management system. All right, microlearning. If you haven't heard of this yet, I mean, it's everywhere. There's a lot of different tools. You can definitely do microlearning modules inside of iSpring, so I encourage you to check that out. I have a link to that article at the end of the presentation, and this is bite-sized chunks. So you don't want content like you don't want to watch. Nobody wants to watch an hour video and say, this is learning. No, we want those small digestible things that we can take with us. The learner definitely retains the information better, saves time and money because you're doing smaller things. You're not doing huge things all at once. And then you have on-demand resources you can refer back to. So if you have videos that are microlearning, you could put those out on a web page and people can just go learn on their own during their own time asynchronously. And I've also found that microlearning improves the completion rates because people don't feel like it's a struggle to go out and take these very, very lengthy trainings. They want things that are quick, they're actionable, hence this presentation, and they want to be able to use it right away. So this is a great way to set up your learning. Like I said, iSpring has this incorporated. You can go and check out the article on how you set up microlearnings within iSpring. Gamification. Who doesn't love a video game? Who doesn't love a Candy Crush? Who doesn't love, getting badges and points and seeing yourself be successful and checking things off of the list? So gamification is really important and can definitely help increase motivation and also, save that time on the back end for trying to get an instructor maybe to motivate people. Like they're motivated. I don't know about you, but I love seeing like, oh, you've gotten to this level or you've received this badge. And I see a lot of people out on LinkedIn world sharing their certifications and their badges because it's important to them. It has some sort of meaning behind it. Again, this can improve retention rates and that knowledge retention. And it's very motivating as well for the learners. They find the experience way more engaging and enjoyable when things are gamified. I actually worked with an instructor one time who gamified his whole course, and it didn't have grades, it had points, and whatever point value you were at the end, and you had different levels, think of like a Mario situation, that's the grade you got. I mean, it worked and students loved it. Finally, this is my favorite probably, are the simulations, because this is the one that allows the learners to practice the skills inside the systems that they're going to be using in their roles. So when you're training somebody who's coming in on a system, say, for example, they have to know like a calling system or a chat system, like if you've ever been on, even Amazon, chatting with Amazon customer care people who are, walking you through different things or how to do a return. Some of these systems on the back end, while they look very easy to the customer, internally they can be very complex. So simulations allow you to go in and actually mirror or emulate what the environment is and then have the user click through a particular scenario. So if you're working with a customer and you have to notate different things, you can work through that simulation and you're expected to maybe elevate the ticket at certain points to tier 2 support, and you have to note that in the ticket, or there's certain things you have to do to elevate it. These are job-related tasks. And again, thinking back to that time to proficiency, it improves the competency and the confidence of the learners. Again, saving time on the back end. They're doing it themselves. There might be an instructor there facilitating, but the metrics you will find will be drastically improved when they have been exposed to the environments and the systems that they are going to be using. So I love using a simulation, whether that's going in and recording the screen and then putting it out on iSpring, and they can go in and click areas, and I can create hotspots, different things, just to make sure they're clicking in the right spot of what they need to do. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to try this in your training and see how it works. You're gonna get good ROI on this, and you're also gonna get improved metrics. And again, think about KPIs. Like, this relates directly to the business because they're using the systems of the business. All right. Do we want to pause? We're going to wait to the end for questions, right?
I think we're good, aren't we?
Okay. Awesome. All right. So now that you've gone through and you've set up your training, your presentation, what are people going to be going through, the logical flow? They've gone through the simulation, or they've gone through the gamified course. Now you need to evaluate it. So it's not just all done in a vacuum, like, oh, I think this is so cool. I gamified this. They have a really neat simulation, and I'm just going to stop. No. As instructional designers, we all know we want that feedback from those participating in our courses, in our content, in the things that we develop. So I like to use the Kirkpatrick model as my evaluation method when we're doing different things and evaluating those courses, because it has 4 different levels. Okay, this definitely is important for you to understand at the first level, that what participants found favorable about the ends. So level 1 is important if you're wanting to get their initial reaction. Now, when you step into level 2 questions, then you're going to want to know about the skills that they acquired, their confidence, their commitment. How did they participate? This might be sort of assessing the learners on what they are able to do, pulling those reports to make sure that they have learned what you're expecting them to do. And then going even further up into that is behavior, is am going back into the job and being successful, following up with them after they've taken the simulation and making sure that they feel confident. Do you remember taking this training back in September of 2020? And did it help you? Do you feel more confident? And they're going back to the job and they're actually performing well. So you want to get those metrics as well. So evaluation does require quite a bit of follow-up. And then the results. So, trying to support like what you're doing here in the training and the accountability of everything that you've developed. So this is the higher level information. You want to make sure that your training was successful, but what does that look like? These are those level 4 questions. And when you take into consideration, mostly we stay at the level 1s, level 2s. Sometimes we go into the level 3s. Level 4 is a little bit more complex. But when you take into consideration using these different levels to evaluate your trainings, you can then make data-driven decisions, which businesses love. We love data, as we said at the beginning, and then improve things. I think it's so important to elicit the feedback about how participants felt in your training. So definitely that level 1 stuff. Was it engaging? Did they appreciate it? Did you have cute little characters running around, but also were they learning? Did it change their behavior? Because we know that things, when it's just retention of information, maybe true or false, multiple choice questions, that doesn't exhibit behavioral change. We want to know that the participants got something out of it. And again, it's applicable to what they're doing out in the real world. All right, I'm going to go back actually to, let's remind ourselves of the actionable things that we can do. So one was identifying those training needs. So we went through and we identified for our learners the needs analysis. We did some surveying, we did some discussions, maybe focus groups, and now we know what they need. Then we used that systems approach. We went to Addie. We said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to design and what we're going to develop. And then we're going to implement it, right? We're going to put it out there. We're going to have it for everybody to see. And then we're going to figure out while we're doing that, what's the right modality as we're developing? Is it going to be e-learning, combination? And then making sure that we're creating content that we can use again. Because again, saving time, saving money, you might not need as many instructional designers on your team if you're creating reusable content instead of creating something new all the time. We know something new takes a lot of time. Using that technology to your advantage. Don't use it just for the sake of it. I've seen a lot of different situations where people just throw whatever out there. That's not good. You want to make sure you're evaluating the technology as well. Is this useful for the participants, the learners? So use those things and make sure that they're beneficial. Pilot, excuse me. I get so excited about this stuff. I choke on my words. So testing with a small group. I come into different situations all the time and I'm like, you should have tested this. And this happens a lot in education where you should have piloted it with the teachers before you released it to the wild, to everybody, and said that we're going to use this tool. So definitely want to pilot things. All right. Now I want to know from you. I went through that pretty quickly.
I want to know from you. That escalated quickly.
Yeah, that did escalate quickly. I was like, this might be too long when I was looking at it. I want to know how you felt about this presentation. So I'm doing the level 1 analysis here. I'm evaluating you, asking you how you felt. Needs improvement. I loved it. One of the best. Kind of in the middle. You know, it could use a little bit of work. It's not perfect, but it gave me something. It gave me a takeaway. So I want to know from you what you think about this presentation, how you would rate it.
Look at that. Everybody's super happy. What is more, we've got lots of supportive comments in the chat, such as, that was nice and concise. Also, love this presentation and your passion is evident. Also, when you were just explaining all those modals and making comments, the chat was very supportive to you, saying that they love this model and they were very happy about your examples on the short seams. And in general, a lot of general discussion about the examples that you've shared. So I guess you got just a lot of support from the audience.
That's good. I'm seeing some improvement, which obviously it's my first iteration. It's not going to be my best iteration. I always tell my participants that. So definitely room for improvement. But I hope you got some actionable things that you were able to take with you and implement as you go back to your businesses. And I want to open it up for questions. Here is my email. This is my business email, and I would love to connect with you out on LinkedIn World. That's where I'm the most active. So thank you. And what are your questions? And here are all the resources. I would encourage you. These are all iSpring resources, and I find these so useful to me when I'm trying to do different things in instructional design. If you're looking to do some gamification, there's a great article about that. You know, the LMS, the iSpring Learn, the blog in the community, awesome place to be. You learn so much from other people, and they're sharing all their experiences. And if you're new to instructional design, what is instructional design? Very hard. I could probably do a whole hour presentation about what is instructional design. So these are linked within the presentation, and I'm going to open it up for questions now.
Absolutely. While I'll be commenting on the chat and also asking you the first questions, Holly, feel free to sip a bit of water or take a little time to relax, because I know it's very, very exciting and always very, very engaging when you are the one presenting. But believe me, the people around really appreciated your effort. They say that it was very informative and indeed very helpful, learned a lot, definitely learned a lot. Thanks for the resources. And of course, a comment from Michael, our recurring visitor, our very helpful commenter. He says that indeed e-learning industry is another great source of community. So
yes,
that's very true, isn't
100%.
Exactly. So I welcome everybody to share their questions. However, I'd like to start with the one that we've had a little earlier from Jennifer. Do you perchance have the training created by the professor who gamified his or her entire course. I'd love to see that.
I would love to share it with you. Unfortunately, it's proprietary. And in higher ed, there's FERPA things. And that instructor actually left the institution I was working at and they took it all with them. So we did not get a copy of it. But I encourage you to go on Google and see if anybody shared anything publicly, because lots of people have gamified. Yes, it was so cool. I was like, I'm back in my bedroom in the 1980s, early 90s playing Mario. It was so neat what he set up. It was fantastic.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Also, a lot of people were commenting on the evaluation levels and that they loved reviewing the evaluation levels. So also a couple of comments. I think Michael gave a great explanation, and I just want to maybe to hear your comment to what Michael has shared with us. It would be just very helpful as well. He was saying level 1 is smile sheet, level 2 is test assessments, level 3 is did a change occur over time and it's sustained. Level 4 is ROI on impact or impact on the organization as a whole.
I completely agree with that. That is a great simplistic version of what the different levels are, for Kirkpatrick. And, we talk in levels when we're doing evaluations. It's like level 1, is this level 1? Is this level 2? When we're having conversations about instructional design. So you'll find yourself like, oh yeah, these were level 3 information. But, when you have those business meetings and the level 4s really come into play, what the impact. Yes, I love that. I should put that in my slides.
Yes, and
by Michael though.
By Michael, yeah, exactly. So, Michael, thanks a lot. We really appreciate all your very valuable input. Please don't stop the music. Please continue and keep sharing your thoughts, guys. Keep asking questions. It's very, very helpful. Makes our session really alive. And for Katie and everybody else who's interested in getting the slides and the resources, they're all going to be sent to you within a week after we finish our event, which is tonight evening. Well, evening, afternoon, morning, depends on your
right.
time zone effectively, right? So after today, you need to wait for about, well, let's say within a week, we'll try to put it all together for you in this beautiful goodie bag and send it over email. All right. So I just would love to continue and ask you one more question.
Sure.
Honestly speaking, I was quite interested in those cost-saving measures, but when it comes to areas, like where do you suggest to focus on when it comes to cost-saving measures in training programs? Like how do we prioritize the places where we can apply those cost-saving measures?
I would definitely say with new hires, that's very large area for a lot of different businesses where money is spent quite a bit because of attrition. So I'd say that would be one area to definitely focus on, how you're onboarding people and how you're retaining them and making sure that as they get through the 3-month, the 6-month, the 9-month, the year mark, that they're growing. And that you're getting those level 3, level 4 metrics. I think that's one very large area for a lot of businesses need work in, because we find that attrition happens like within, the first few days of like getting experience into the company. If people find like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. So you really want to make that onboarding experience really well done. And again, it can be applicable across different parts of the business. So, is it this for everybody or is this for a particular subset? Probably want to make it for everybody. I think that's probably the biggest one that I would focus on, because that you bring in a lot of different people at various times in companies.
Indeed. Well, thank you for this answer, Holly. I do have another question, which I find very, very interesting. And personally, I'd love to hear your answer. Since I was the one who always loved gamification in whatever webinars or activities I organized, Alf is asking, are there any risks to gamification or anything to avoid?
Yeah, there are risks. I mean, I think that some people put out, certificates and they put out badges and things that have no weight behind them or no level of importance. And that's definitely a risk, because, somebody will say like, I got an instructional design certificate, But my first question is, where'd you get your instructional design certificate from? Is it from an accredited body? Is it from some sort of business? Is it somebody's personal business? You have to, those are risks that you take, and you have to be clear about where those things are coming from. Also, too, some people don't like it. They don't like the gamification. They think it's very childish, and it's not motivating to them. That's not the way that they prefer to learn. So you could have a whole group that just doesn't like gamification, and that training is not successful. So I would say, one, the weight. You need to have some sort of weight behind it, that it's meaningful and that it's purposeful. Transitioning maybe if you're at an institution to different departments, like this badge is important from institutional advancement to going into marketing or something like that. And then making sure that, again, you analyze the learners and see what they like, and not just throwing gamification out there because it's fun. And you're like, I know they will love this, but they didn't.
One of the things that I personally encountered when I was doing a gamification endeavor during one of my programs is that it was just not very well gamified. Like, we personally found that this should have been engaging with my team, but it ended up being, well, not just good enough. So in a sense, we never had quite a good testing focus group for that, and ended up having a poorly designed gamification, which probably would have worked if it had been tested nicer. But in the end, exactly, even if we had a quite interesting and engaging set of activities, it still just wasn't very well tested, not very well piloted. So again, another risk on the way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Alf thanks us for the answer, and lots of other colleagues in the chat also share their gratitude. So I believe that we must have just then reached the limit of the questions, I guess. I don't see any other questions, only comments from Amy, for example. When there are actual rewards involved, that helps. Definitely. And I think that's very right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then gaming elements need to be purposeful and meaningful to the audience, says Michael.
Right.
Good.
Yep.
All right.
I'm so glad Michael's here.
Come again?
I said, I'm so glad Michael's here.
Oh, I am very glad that Michael is here. Definitely. My lifesaver. All right. Holly, your energy is infectious, says Michael. Great job, Holly, says our speaker, James, from the previous day. So James opened our conference. So I'm very glad.
Oh, hi, James.
Yay. All right, Holly, I think that we are really good here. And if there are any other questions, I'm sure there will be other opportunities to ask Holly on LinkedIn, for example. That would be just perfect. And I think that we could just use this chance and opportunity to proceed. Oh no, I'm sorry. I see one more question. I guess let's try to take it, wouldn't we, Holly?
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I apologize that this is question, but it's specific to us. We create training for school districts across the country. How do you measure ROI in this situation?
That's going to be a conversation you're going to have with administrators, because they're going to want to, how much are they investing, and then how much are they getting back out from the educators. So you're going to have to kind of see, and that varies by school district, what are the metrics that they're using. So you would want to get some specific, like maybe their top 3 things that they're going to see as a return on investment, because it might not be clear as like they're not getting money back out of the instructors. They're getting like performance, or they're getting maybe some trainings internally. So you'd have to figure out how that looks. And that, again, is going to vary by situation. Oh, you're muted.
Yep, I am indeed. Thank you very much, Holly. I appreciate all your answers, indeed, all your energy. It was very, very infectious. So you even charged me a little bit, because it's already the middle of our conference, and it's indeed a lot of information going through my brain and the brains of our audience. But it's been very, very energizing and refreshing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly.
You're welcome.
You can stay with us.
I actually have to go back to work.
Oh, have to gamify, and
I know you have to do all the things, simulations, all the fun stuff, but I look forward to catching up soon.
All right, but we still will have fun as well, regardless here. All right, Holly, thank you so very much. Bye and cheers to you.